back. How are we
All
doing,
right.
everyone?
How's it going, everyone? We made it. We made it to day 3. I mean, all the sessions and the speakers and the collaboration and the energy. I
The
hope that
networking.
the networking, the Cupid shuffles, all those
Yeah.
things, this has been an incredible week. Chris, how's it been for you? Have you been in the background, running around, making
Yeah.
sure things are going smooth? What's been going on in your world?
Been playing support, you know, that's the biggest thing about any opportunities like this. It takes a team effort, and I'm just so proud of the welcome team, built the tech symposium all together, right? Just for us to get something like this running and supporting so many people. I've just been so appreciative of it, and I'm proud that we got it done. It's been a great 3 day conference.
Absolutely. And I want to say thank you so much to everybody too. I just love seeing in real time just people just supporting each other, picking people up. I've seen our sponsors are super, super gracious. Our speakers just had such rich content. Like I this is my first tech symposium. And, I definitely will make sure that I spread the word far and wide for the next one. I just think that it's been an incredible value, and just seeing the turnout, and then the type of people that came out, and all the questions, I can tell that, we have a seat at the table. We are supposed to
Yes.
be in this industry, and we are going to go nowhere but up. And it's just fitting that we have it during the week of Juneteenth. I am just, having a great time. I feel very empowered. I hope everyone
Yes.
else feels empowered, because I know we can do great things with the right support and the right guidance.
Yeah, these things are necessary and they're capable. And, as organizations like Built are growing, these tech symposiums are going to be growing as well as other metroplexes and regions get involved. But just specifically for North Texas, we like look at what we did. And I'm sure we have several first timers that are here. And so we appreciate you. And again, you gave a shout out to the sponsors and the supporters we had. I think as these things continue, we're going to have more organizations that tap in. But just so thank you to Toyota and to Sempris, especially to Ann Taylor for being on the welcome team and supporting us and showing off some amazing dance moves in our welcome video. Shannon, you had some moves too.
You know what? I was hoping that wouldn't even come up, but here we are. You know,
The comedian has to bring up the most uncomfortable things outside.
he's being nice because I look like a broken ladder on roller skates, but that's okay. That's okay. I try my best. So like that's got to be the Asian side of the family. Like that, the coordination comes from that side.
Well,
And
no, because we should have expected some breakdancing or something.
you know what? I broke my back because I've
There we go.
kind of sort of sported. So I think something happened there. Like I'm starting to feel my age. So, but that's okay. I'm glad everyone had a good time. Our team did a great job. I mean, I really do have to shout out like the team, like especially our tech team, like Robert and Betty and all these people, Josh. Like I felt a little lost, and they were like, "What do you need? How do I help you?" So it's so nice to see the built team. I mean, shout out to the people in the background making it happen. Shout out to Peter, man, he can make things happen. Your dad can make some magic happen at the very last. I cannot imagine. He's just so multi-talented. Like I cannot believe. I mean, he's just incredible. So shout out to you. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean, he got one thing right. No,
he absolutely got that right.
he's
Amongst
definitely an amazing builder of organizations and creating things for us to have opportunities to grow. And this is a good time if you're in the chat, just to throw a thank you. If you got something out of this conference, if you were able to attend the keynote, if you saw a speaker, like this is just give them some energy, give them some love in the chat. Right, me and Shannon are here to do it officially, but you can chime in as well as we give out some thank yous here.
absolutely. And thank you to you too, especially Chris, because I mean, you got the folks going during the mixer, and it just kind of keeping that energy going. So I really appreciate you being an MC. It's nice to have somebody arm in arm with you, especially being my first time with Built. So I really appreciate having you here. Your energy is very infectious, and you totally make me laugh. Like, I think you're hysterical, man. So,
Well,
but
thank
I
you,
guess
Shannon.
we can move on to the thank yous. I mean, we have a ton of people that we'd love to thank. I guess maybe I'll just take the first slide, and then
Okay.
Chris, you can take the other one. But first, we want to thank. We have a couple dignitaries that we'd like to thank for their contribution to Built's Tech Symposium. We have Richardson Mayer, Coach Doobie. We've got Harrison Blair, the executive director from the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce, and they are part of the opening welcomes. For the collaboration partner, Charles Jackson, the executive director with the Arlington Black Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the things that you've done for us.
And again, thank you to the welcome team for also bringing the energy, supporting. We want these organizations to feel like a place where, you can call us friends and family eventually, right? And grow into that. And the welcome team is great at establishing that. So thank you, Anna Taylor from Sempress. Thank you, Brian Purdy from JP Morgan, which also Byron put me on. I don't want to air out this, but he was sharing it with everyone. His profile photo there is AI, right? Like, that's amazing because it looks good. You never would have known. So thank you for coaching me up. I'm gonna have to get some headshots there. Cherida McLennan, thank you as well. And Dr. Matasabia Solomon, Dr. Solomon, thank you so much for being on the welcome team as well, coming in pinch hitting.
Yeah, and then again, thank you, support team. Betty Reforp, Robert Weaver, Joshua Trussy, especially particularly from me. Thank you so much. You guys are incredible. You guys are the glue that held this thing together. And a lot of we probably would be running all around like ants without your infrastructure and all of your processes and all of your follow-up. Thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of everyone's heart, including mine. Also, the North Texas team, you guys are incredible. You guys are so much fun, right? Executive Director Peter Beasley, Jerry Green Williamson, got to meet her the other day. I think that's my soul sister. Jamicia Dolph, Arnita Dove, Andrea Carter, Krista Armstrong, Donna McGee, Farrell Wilson. All of you are incredible. It's like seeing black magic come together, and so you guys all have it, and we are so grateful for your contributions to making this thing a success.
As well, we couldn't do this without our keynote speakers. So thank you to our keynote speakers, Peter Beasley, Tianan Stevenson, Richard Reed, Gregory Whitman, Cheryl James, and Tony Hobley. Thank y'all so much. I know as well, if you caught one of these keynotes, I'm sure you walked away with plenty of nuggets. I got a book out of it, and I'm going to be reading that book as well, because closed mouths don't get fed, and that is a huge testament to things that I need to learn. So I appreciate that, and so thank y'all to the keynote speakers.
Absolutely. And thank you again to our wonderful sponsors, Toyota in Paris. Thank you so much for showing up for us. They came to the mixer, they had swag, they answered questions, and they've just been so gracious and kind. And we are so grateful to have you a part of our event today. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts.
And then also, can we just overall appreciation to the session speakers and the workshop speakers. We'll have some additional workshops this evening if you want to participate as well. So thank you to those for all that y'all have done, and the medallion appreciation gifts to y'all.
Oh, this is going to be your favorite part. Talk about the mixer. We already talked about my dance moves, and I see myself over there. I tried to hide my face. But
no, well, so you got to blame the DJ. He was relentless. He's like, no, y'all getting out here. We're going to get some steps in there. Even if you were in the back trying to hide, they were pulling everyone on stage. So the mixer was a blast. I was blown away. Just shout out first to the partner, TK. What a beautiful club.
yeah,
And that was stunning, right?
Yes,
It
beautiful
didn't.
place. And you know what? I'm so sad that I missed your segment, but I know you had them rolling in there. People were like, they didn't come out. Like normally, when people don't like comedians, they just go in, but they come right back out. Everybody was just stuck in there. So I knew that it was fire, but as one of the hosts, I couldn't just like,
You had other
make
responsibilities.
sure
I
that,
understand.
we didn't get like people off the streets trying to come in here for no reason. So, but, from my understanding, it was an incredible show, and the club was beautiful, and the turnout was incredible. I was just blown away by that. I mean, we just had a lot of people. Even a couple of my friends showed up, and that's like a 50-50 thing. So
Right? You tell them something like, we'll see, we'll see. No, it was beautiful. It was packed, just having brothers and sisters in there, supporting, laughing, having a good time. If you missed the mixer, um, if the fifth annual tech symposium, you got to come to the mixer, because these tech symposium mixers are the way to go. Just from all the people I got to network with and meet, shout out to the comedians. So I was the first comedian to set it off, had a good time up there, had some good laughs. Might have exposed some things I didn't, we were learning about the audience as we went. But Rocky Durr was an amazing comedian. If you saw him and he did great. Also, you can always get him for an event. We had some allies in the building. I think the owner TK and his wife performed, so we appreciate them being there. And then our headliner Des O'Neill just brought the house down. So man, what a blast! You're right. We didn't have anyone leave the comedy show once they entered. They couldn't escape. They were having such a good time.
absolutely. Plus, I was at the door making sure that they had to go back in. I'm just playing.
You were the bouncer. They're like, oh, we can't mess with Shannon. We got to get back in there.
I'm just playing. No, but it was wonderful. And you know what? The crazy thing is, after this symposium, we're kind of, we're going to spin the block, and we are going to probably all congregate for kind of a casual meetup there at TK's Comedy Club. If you're in the Addison area or near it, or in DFW, come on out. You guys can come have a drink. I will try my best to be there. I'm pretty sure I will be there. Wrap up some projects. But it was a great time. The drinks are great. The food is great. We're not covering the tab this time, but you can come and hang out with us and meet and mix and mingle and network. Thursdays are really good days for TKs as well. So please come out after this. It's at 6:30. There are some workshops still after this closing session. And let me see what they're called. It's going to be at 6 to 8:30. How to foster effective collaboration, unlocking the power of teamwork with Dorothy Bell, and then government contracting for diversity suppliers of Vonda Walker's coming up. The expo booths are still running. We've got some Paris and Power ICS2. The Built team has a virtual booth. Toyota has one. I'm not sure if American Airlines has one, but they're on the thing. So, but anyways, there are other expo booths there. So if you want to go check them out and talk to the folks in the expo, please go ahead and do that as well.
Also, like we said, this was such an amazing symposium, and the team is also working and expanding. So we have our Washington, D.C. Black Tech Symposium. One beautiful thing about a virtual symposium is you can be a part of it even if you're not local, and again, extend your network. That is what this is about. So September 11th through the 13th, that is the Washington, D.C. Black Tech Symposium. You can see the link in the reception or scroll down below this stage to get access. The link has just been also dropped in the chat. So if you want to attend that, this is a great time to get registered for it, because again, closed mouths don't get fed, and we need to network and build our team and our support systems everywhere.
Absolutely. Okay, so I guess we could talk about our favorite highlights. So for me, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to attend all of the events. I had as a biz IT consultant, I always tend to have meetings that stack right on top of each other, but I did my best to attend a few. My favorite so far was the one with Sherry James. She was talking about mental wealth. And I think that's really important. And even the keynote speaker I highlighted on day one, Closed Mouths Don't Get Fed with Tianan. I thought that was very impactful for me too. As a woman of color, especially in corporate America, and I cannot wait for our next session because we're going to talk all about that. It's just kind of hard for us to, like to ask for things, right? Especially because we grow up in a community and a culture where, Black women we have to do a lot of things by ourselves, and so it's kind of hard to, to ask for opportunities or ask for help. At least for me, maybe I'll speak for myself.
I don't think you're alone.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really good session. And then the second one, or the one I just spoke of with Sherelle, talking about mental wealth and burnout and, trying to pour back into yourself. I think everybody struggles. I don't even think that's a color thing or a gender thing. I think we all do that. We're all in a space where technology has made our lives easier, but it's also made our lives a living hell because now we're just accessible, right? You're accessible everywhere. Everybody can get
all angles.
Yeah, unless you go off grid and live like in the hills somewhere, right? But even then, it's just like you've got to be connected somehow, and like learning how to establish boundaries when you can't physically have one is a challenge. I don't know. So thought those were very impactful for me. How about yourself?
Yeah. No, those sound like great sessions. I wish I caught those. I'll definitely be reading through the book because even in my industry, as a stand-up comedian, there are a lot of opportunities where you have just a split second to make a moment to build a network that will lead to hopefully future work. And there's often times where you don't want to come off super pushy or super I don't know, just like I think there have been myths out there that we could be aggressive or different things like that. So I've always kind of held back and been more reserved, which this kind of brings me into one of the keynotes that I really enjoyed from Sherida, the one on microaggressions, just simply being able to deeply understand them. How can I be predicating them? How do I interact with them? I think it's a term that we've all grown to understand, but at the same time, you need to continue your learning on it because so much of our interactions can be misunderstandings, can be actual affronts. And so I really valued that session as well. And by the way, we're giving our favorite highlights. If you had a favorite highlight as well, please drop that in the comments because I see we had one. There's a highlight where the mental health and leadership sessions was very valuable. So thank you for shouting that out as well.
What else? I wish I could have gone to a couple of the sessions, particularly the ABCs of LinkedIn. I keep telling people every day that LinkedIn is it. Like I don't have social media. I don't have Facebook, Instagram. I have a Twitter I never use. I be lurking on TikTok, but my medium is LinkedIn. Like that's where the people of value are going to be. That's where you'll get the most value. And so learning how to leverage that properly, like over the years, I've built an incredible network on LinkedIn. And I've never gone without a job. Like I've never gone without an opportunity. I've been able to pivot into different industries. Like I've come from a completely different industry into tech. And it's all because of network. Like you just have to really learn how to leverage LinkedIn. If you are a subject matter expert, learning how to use LinkedIn Live, learning how to create workshops on there and create events on LinkedIn. Like I think that I really wish I could have made that session with Eddie Reeves just because I want to see if I missed anything. The other thing that I think is any sessions that we had like AI for everyone, I wish I would have attended that one only because, as a Microsoft partner for fiscal year 2025, Microsoft's biggest push right now is Copilot on every desktop. So what we've been telling our Microsoft partners is that if you are not selling AI, if you are not pushing Copilot, if you're not showing your clients how to use it, if you are not learning how to leverage it properly and safely, if you are not securing it safely, then you are going to miss the boat. So learning how to become a prompt engineer, meaning learning how to ask AI the right questions, learning how to secure your data, very important initiative. So I would say if people can take the time to learn about AI and machine learning, I think that's very important. But those are the ones that I wish that I would have checked out.
Yeah.
And Peter, yes, your keynote was especially dope. Chris, please tell us about Peter's keynote speech because I don't think I caught most of it, or maybe I did. And I
Yeah,
was,
so
that was
it was actually great to listen to because I got to catch his keynote and I lived a lot of it. So I remember a lot of it from both angles. Dope is a strong word, but I think it was a great keynote speech. Um, it's just about perseverance, right? Like if I really had to sum up what uh, that keynote really embodies, is that a lot of times in our industries, black people in tech, black people in society, we have to be resilient and persevere through a lot of things. And we might not know exactly where that path takes us.
mhm.
But I agree, like every keynote really touched on some powerful things. We also had a few other shout outs in the chats as well. Just let's see, we have let's see. I'm struggling with all the names. I apologize. The session with Johnny Foster was a game changer, and it peeled back layers on the opportunity in his field of choice. So kudos to Mr. Foster. Anytime that someone kind of revealed what your industry is like, that is super beneficial. Also, the hiring expos and the like Simpress had one. American Airlines and Toyota, both of those. If you're looking for opportunities, those were also great sessions to be a part of.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say is when what you take away is, network with people, man. Make sure that you get people's names or numbers or LinkedIn. If you've met people here at this symposium, make sure you reach out on LinkedIn and say, hey, I didn't get to meet you, but I wish I did. Thank you. As a person that has been building a network over the years, every time I go to an event, any conference, any name, any
Yeah.
number, any business card, I was always on LinkedIn saying, hey, it was great to meet you, or I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but just letting you know that it was a pleasure to meet you, and just adding them to your network. And not being afraid to ask people for time, like if they've got it, they'll give it to you. A lot of thought leaders love to sit down and talk to people and help them along their way. If you ask them properly and you're respectful of their time, you can get a lot of things out of thought leaders that way. Um,
I
and
would struggle with situations like that in the past of reaching out, but also like you mentioned about AI nowadays, if you're struggling with what that opening message needs to be, hop on AI and then be like, so what should I send to Shannon to build that network?
Well, for me, it's just you could be very organic. You could just like, hey, Shannon, I met you at the tech symposium. If you have some time in the coming days or weeks, I'd love to grab coffee with you for about half an hour. Do you have time for that? Or can you get on a brief call with me? I'm like, all right, sure, let's do it. Like let me look at my calendar. Let's schedule some time. You'll be surprised how many times I've reached out to random strangers on LinkedIn that were CEOs or in a tech space and did that, and they were like, sure.
Oh, wow.
I found a product manager from Disney once. I can't remember who else was the other one. And they were willing to speak to me, for a few minutes to tell me how to get there and what courses to take. So don't be afraid. Closed mouths don't get fed. Don't be afraid to say. And then the other thing I want to talk about Peter's keynote speech is that I have to say I'm very interested in his journey, like just knowing his journey, and how he got there, and the fact that the most powerful people in the world are people who have been through a lot but know how to bring people together. Is the people who
Mhm.
can move people that are successful, right? It's
Definitely.
people who can connect people that have all the power. And so I just really think that I've now my memory's jogging. It's been a long week, but I remember catching the tail end of his keynote, and I remember him, talking about, he's very community focused, and I think that in anything, if you want to be successful and make money, you have to have something that helps people, right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
just remember that, and it could be anything from healing people's souls with comedy, or finding solutions, building solutions that can make Black people's lives easier. I think that's why we need to tech, because tech is a space where we can create resources that were not accessible to us. So that's why we need you in this industry. We need you to build things that'll make our lives easier, right? So please pursue your certs, pursue your careers, pursue your opportunities, pursue your networks. We need more of y'all in this space, and we need your voice, and we need your seat, and we need your butt in a seat on the table.
Yeah, and you know what? I think what's also amazing is we need as many voices as possible. And I think we have a great closing keynote coming up just to get
Yes.
more voices in. Shannon, tell us about our just a little bit about our closing ceremony here.
Well, I'm going to formally introduce her in about 2 minutes, but I am extremely excited about this. I had to shout it on the rooftops in LinkedIn because, you don't often get to see a panel of powerful Black women on a stage talking about this journey in this very, very new, I want to say this enterprise, right? This, tech space is a very new space, I think, for Black people. And especially, and for Black women, we are not typically seen in this space like everybody else, right? And so you really have to bust down the digital doors to really make your mark. And even, and just in any industry, right? With, in the corporate space. So I always love having conversations and listening to women who, especially Black women who have been through the trenches and have just kind of brick by brick, just built this empire. And it's always really good to hear, how did they do it? What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? How do you overcome these things? And so we are going to hear from these women. We're going to figure out, what does it take to start a business? Should you start a business as a Black female professional? How do we overcome that fear? Because, oh my God, like I just started in tech and somebody came to me and said, hey, I would love to see you open your own cloud architect firm. And I'm like, oh my God, my heart almost like fell out of my mouth. Like, I'm like that. I was just terrified just thinking about it. So it's like, how do I overcome that? What happens when I master my craft and I hit this glass ceiling? Like, what's next? Do I open a different door or what? So without further ado, I am going to now present our next keynote speakers for the closing panel. I'm actually going to introduce to you the hostess and the moderator for this discussion. So let's see here. I have the pleasure of introducing you to our closing panel hostess, the Director of Corporate Engagement at the Texas Capital Bank, Stephanie Bowers. Stephanie is a nationally recognized advocate for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Her unwavering commitment to fostering diverse and inclusive workplaces have made her a respected leader in the field. From her professional achievements to her philanthropic endeavors, Stephanie's story is one of dedication, empowerment, and positive change. She's held a variety of progressively responsible leadership roles at Texas Capital, USAA, Simmons Bank, Habitat for Humanity, and Fannie Mae, and is an accomplished entrepreneur and speaker within the arenas of education, community development, and humanitarian causes. Previously on the board of the American Bankers Association, she has an impressive educational background and a range of certifications in risk management, compliance, and DE&I and B, with an executive MBA from the University of Texas at Dallas and a BS from Prairie View A&M University. Additionally, Stephanie's obtained several DE&I and B certifications, including a Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Workplace Certificate, a National Diversity Council Certified Diversity Professional Certification, and a Strategy, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Certification. Stephanie's qualifications and achievements demonstrate her expertise in various areas, including risk management, compliance, and promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace, highlighting her dedication to making Dallas a better place today than it was yesterday. Ms. Bowers, it is an absolute honor to introduce you and your panel here today to close out the symposium. Please take it away.
Thank you very much for having us today. I am very honored to be a part of this fourth annual symposium. I am honored also to be on a panel of phenomenal ladies, and I'm excited as we move forward into this conversation. This is a groundbreaking panel, as you mentioned earlier. What we're going to hear about is career pathing. They're going to provide some guidance and strengths on how they transition from working for someone else to working for themselves. So please stay tuned. Get out your paper and your pen, because they're going to be giving us some knowledge and some gems along the way that we will all benefit from, regardless of the industry that you may be in or that they may be in. So I'd like to start by introducing the panel. On the panel, we have Mrs. Scott. So I'd like to start there with Ms. Scott and have her introduce herself and talk about her background and where she is today. Hi, Ms. Scott, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Can you give us a 30-second overview of your background? We'd love to get to know you better.
Yeah, most definitely. So I graduated with a BS in electrical engineering from Cal State Long Beach. Recently moved down to Dallas, and I also 3 years ago started my own financial agency within the financial industry.
Wonderful. Perfect. Next on our panel, we have Mrs. Walker. Ms. Walker, can you give us a 30-second background on yourself, and please introduce yourself to the audience? We are going to circle back to Vonda. The next person we have on the panel, continuing the phenomenal lineup that we have today, would be Ms. Hollins. Ieshea, can you give us a background on your career path and the success that you had and where you are today? You're on mute. There we go.
Sorry.
I can hear you loud and clear.
It's a pleasure to meet you guys. Thanks so much for having me today. My name is Ieshea Hollins. I am the founder and CEO of Forensic Technology. So we are actually a digital forensic cybersecurity consulting firm, one of the first organizations to kind of marry the two concepts together. So we do work with organizations to help them understand we come at cybersecurity a little differently. We try to simplify it and make it, clarify for the client how much cybersecurity do they need. But also in the event of a breach, we are there to kind of help you through the process. So the incident response plans and things for the various clients. And then we also offer the immersive training experience for individuals because, we understand people won't get, they don't spend what they don't get. So we try to make it make sense. So I started the organization 15 years ago, and we are located in both Monroe, Louisiana, and Dallas, Texas.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, I'm going to start off today's discussion with you, Ieshea. The first question that we have for you is, what are the pros and cons of being a tech practitioner employee versus owning your own enterprise? And you talked about your locations and Forensic, your firm. We'd love to know more about what you believe the pros and cons are for that.
Ooh, thank you. Great question. I think we can all agree a pro so when you work for someone else, there is leadership, there's guidance, and the vision is already there. Somebody you're building towards something someone else has already identified. And so you're problem solving. And you're able to utilize your skills, sharpen your skills, iron sharpens iron. So you're it's not up to you to go find those people with whom you need to collaborate and work. It's always great, with regards to, we know where our check is coming from every month or every 2 weeks, so that's the beautiful part of, working in corporate. Some of the downsides or the cons, I would say, for working for someone else is always going to be, you're not where the decision stops. So if you are leadership driven, and especially depend on the type of organization you're in, sometimes that ceiling, we can run into that ceiling in more ways than just financial, right? You can start bumping your head into, I don't understand why they don't see how the solution that they're giving us won't work, right? And so I do know that was one of the things that kind of occurred to me. There was times that I sat in meetings and I'm sitting around the table, because we've all been there, right? And we're going, I have no idea where that beautiful gem came from, right? And you can't say anything, right? And then as the owner of an organization, I've also had the benefit of sitting in a seat where it was, that decision may not have made sense at the level I was at, but now that I'm at a higher level, I now understand why that beautiful gem would not have made sense.
Absolutely. As you're talking about your beautiful gem, and I'm sure a lot of other folks can relate. So I'm shaking my head like, yes, I don't understand the journey, but it's a journey nonetheless.
Yeah.
Roshandra, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. We'd love to get your insight into what you believe the pros and cons of being a tech practitioner employee versus owning your own enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, as Ieshea mentioned, you know, when you're working for a company, you have that 2-week check coming in, but you also fall into this the point of losing your vision when you're working for an employee, because now your vision is also suppressed because you have to work on their agenda and not yours. Although you may have all the bright ideas and so on and so forth, if it's not conducive to the company, they're going to overlook it. And it's going to be, in the terms of me being an electrical engineer, let's just say I were to design something, but because I'm employed, they kind of own my design in a sense. But when it comes to, you know, you having your own business, now you're kind of like, okay, this is my vision. This is where I see my business going. How can I make it work? And it also depends on just what type of business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful response. I want to take a respectful pause. We have an amazing panelist that just joined our group. Miss Vonda Walker is here. And so Vonda, if you could give us a 30-second spill on your background and introduce yourself, we'd love to hear more about you.
Hi, and I'm sorry. I had a few technical difficulties. Anyway, so I've been in the healthcare industry for a little over 20 years. I am an informaticist by trade. So I'm a technical informaticist, which means I bring healthcare and IT together. So, like I said, been in the industry, worked for a lot of the top vendors within the industry. If you ever heard of Epic or Cerner or any of those, McKesson. I have worked for them mainly in the software space, like I said, configuring, you know, software, things of that nature, and then project management. So I pretty much run the gamut in this industry.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Vonda. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for sharing your background. I'm going to start off with a question for you. And so the audience is comprised of younger versus seasoned professionals, and all of them have been in different industries. And so we would love to get your insight on what prompted you to start your own firm.
Wow. You know, I think I listened to Roshandra talk about your talents not being utilized. So I would be hired for a company and then placed in a specific role. And even if I had knowledge about other roles, or if I could, you know, I add to the company, if I had other skill sets that I felt were valuable to the company, they kind of went unnoticed. And I went through all the trouble of getting all of these certifications and accolades that were really never used. And another thing I noticed, my head was always on the chopping block. You know, I mean, I could be dismissed at any time, and you know, maybe a small severance, maybe none. And you know, I kind of got tired of it. I also wanted to do my own thing. I started in 2020, believe it or not, COVID, around that time, and I realized the advantages of being in business for myself. So that's what got me started.
You've had a seasoned journey of experiences. And if you could look back in hindsight, what would you tell those that are in college or in trade schools as they look to enter the technology industry? Are there areas or fields of technology you would encourage people to stay away from, maybe things that are dying versus new opportunities that are out there? Because what I heard you say that probably that resonated with me for sure versus some others, your head is always on a chopping block or on a swivel when you have to work for someone else. So the part of this symposium, which I hope empowers our audience as well as ourselves, is getting those gems that Ieshea mentioned earlier in the conversation and having those takeaways that will help us make better decisions. So back to my question, sorry for the long-winded inquiry, but are there parts of college or trade schools from an industry perspective you would encourage folks to either enter or stay away from?
definitely enter technology because that's just the way that we're going. I would say do your research. There are a lot of dying fields, journalism. If you're going to add technology to it, so if you're going to go into social media, it's great. But just I guess journalism, things like that. They're dying fields. What I would advise you to do is just do your research. Find out, what companies, look at your top companies, look at the top positions. Glassdoor is a very good place to start, and there are other websites, but I'm just going to name Glassdoor as being one of them. You want to do your research before you go into an industry. It's okay to add some vocation or have a minor, but if your major should definitely be focused on where the economy is headed. Like I said, take a long look at the industry and find out where we're headed. As far as, if you don't mind, take a few minutes. Technology, how I got into this, I started off in business admin. And when I graduated, I had no idea what I was going to do. Business admin, what? I was going to, run a retail store, maybe be a store manager. And I was. And I hated it. I really did. Because there were a lot of hours I couldn't bill for. And it was just crazy. I was working weekends. I didn't like it. And somehow or another, I fell into healthcare, and I liked it, but I noticed that what was growing was the EDI side of things, the electronic side of things, and I had to go back to school and get a degree in technology. So what I'm saying is do your research before you get out there. If you want to take a couple of gap years just to kind of explore, do it. But make sure that what you're getting into is growing. And like, with healthcare, there was so many plethoras, so many platforms that I could be on, that the sky was, it was limited. Opportunities were limited.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, you said it perfectly. Unlimited. Okay, there we go. The sky is the limit. The sky is for sure the limit. I've heard a quote that says we only limit ourselves by our thought process. So another gem that you provided to us. Roshandra, I want to pivot over to you. I was advised you are the youngest panelist of the four of us today. And so while we're talking about career pathing and making your own way, my question for you is, what would you say about your professional journey? Is it just getting started? Is it underway? And if yes, what are your expectations as you continue to carve out your space in the industry?
Yeah, so it is just getting started. I graduated 2019, got my first job in 2020. So I'm 4 years into the industry for electrical engineers. And I would say it's underway, but also a big part of me, because I do have, a financial agency now. It's kind of like, okay, well, I love engineering, but I also see the downsides of having a job and working for somebody else. Like she said, the sky is a limit, and we also have to recognize where the world is going, and AI is kind of taking over. So even with me being an electrical engineer, it's like, okay, well, when is going to come my time where I'm no longer going to be needed, because now they're building all these robotics and all these different things. So you have to figure out, what do people need and what do people want? Yes, we need technology. Yes, we need power, and yes, we need electricity. It's the the number one thing, but we also need money, which is why I hopped into the financial industry, because it's right next to oxygen. So me being in the career, yes, there's different certificates that I want to accomplish, so I can go out on my own and start building my own type of engineering program for kids. Right. I didn't learn about STEM until I was in college, just to kind of piggyback off of that question, the previous question. But in totality with my career, although engineering is fun, I just know technology is rapidly just producing, right? AI, we have AI on Instagram, we have AI on Facebook, and just all these different things. And even when it comes to, computer science coding, you can go on AI and ask them, hey, can you develop me a code for X, Y, and Z? And they will spit it out. I literally use that at work a couple of days ago. And I'm like, wow, I don't even have to think anymore. So it also limits people's thought process and thinking. Like, where's our imagination really going when it's working for someone else rather than working for ourselves and really figuring out our purpose?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing. Ieshea, I would love to dive into your career path. We've had a lot of conversations and got to know Vonda's background and Roshandra's background and the path that they took. What's been your path that led you to being self-employed and to start your own firm?
Great question. Thank you. I always kind of knew that I've always been curious about how things work, how they ticked, right? And so I was literally just I was a speaker last night, and I said I'm pointing up because she's up for me. I don't know where she is for you guys. Roshandra. I almost was an engineer. I love how things work, right? Additionally, I really did enjoy coding. So coding was my thing. The problem was the closer I got to graduation, I knew I talked too much, y'all. It wasn't going to work. It was not going to work to put me in a corner in the back, right? And just have me coding in the dark like that. But at that time, that is where technicians were, right? Like if you were in programming, if you were in IT, that's really kind of what you were. And I recognized for myself that as opposed to being a technologist who understood coding, I understood my competitive advantage. And that advantage was I brought a different look at how we see technology. For me, I grew up at a time, so, being not the youngest on the panel, we can all say that, or I can say, growing up, I knew technology was a thing. My dad would tell me that, right? My father was an entrepreneur. So I always knew I was going to work for myself. I just did not necessarily have a finger on what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to work for myself. And, but when we looked at what hat can I wear as I grow up, we were taught how to be a teacher, how to be a nurse. And literally there are literal hats for every one of those jobs. How to be a cop. If you go with me in your mind, every one of them has a hat. A doctor had a hat, a nurse had a hat. But we were not given the benefit of visually seeing technology as a career path. And then we really kind of got short-sighted with technology too, because tech became, do you fix a computer? Can you fix my printer? Can you make sure my internet works? Or can you build me a website? And that's really where we started to focus on. That was technology. And no one was thinking any bigger really than that. And so as I work with different groups and organizations and courses that I teach, one of the things I begin to say is technology, cybersecurity falls in the bucket, right, with technology. But we're not siblings like they think we are. We're more like cousins, right? And we're cousins with a very different, our family tree kind of branches out. No, but because nobody talks to us like that. But we'll talk like that in medical. In medical, you understand I need a doctor and I need a specialist. I need a nurse and I need a specialist. And I need somebody to work the ER and I need somebody to draw blood. But we don't have those same conversations in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity in the year 2025, we're predicted to have 3.5 million jobs out there that are unfulfilled. But it's because everybody thinks that cybersecurity is synonymous to hacking. And we don't understand that cyber is just as diverse as medicine. I need somebody in PR. Why would I need to be in PR in cybersecurity? Because if there's a breach, you need to learn how to talk to the press. You need to learn how to talk to the people. And if there's a breach, who's handling the fallout, right? If there's a breach, who's looking at all of the code behind the scenes? So for me, I'm really big on helping people, and that's actually how I got my start. I heard about a case that was in the news, and there was a guy that had been arrested, and he said that he didn't do the crime. And I'm listening to this on the radio, and I'm thinking to myself, who is his attorney working with? If you're accused of a cyber crime, who do you pick up the phone and tell your attorney, make sure you hire this particular consultant? We didn't exist at the time. And so therefore, as I'm listening and I go back and I'm talking to the other people that I'm working with, and I'm looking at and I'm going, this is a literal career path. Like, this is a literal need. And so I went into cybersecurity to help. And I've grown my organization on the premise that we're here to help.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And you inspired me with that story. I know you're inspiring our audience as well. You used a term earlier talking about the competitive advantage and the things that you recognized early in your childhood going into the career, and you continue to build on your skill set and your experiences and just your awareness of how important your industry was. And that alone gives you the competitive advantage. I want to pivot over to Vonda to learn more about the healthcare industry. And Vonda, on your journey throughout your career, what have been some instances or skill sets that you've developed or seen others develop that have helped them get the competitive advantage for your industry related to tech?
Believe it or not, it's a little bit of what everybody does. So to start with Ieshea, she said cybersecurity. See, we were all about security when we started because when I got in, because we were in EHR. So that was electronic health records where we were protecting data. And we developed tools like Splunk and Break the Seal and those things. So she's smiling and laughing. Yeah, because we had to do that. And then also financial, because we were sending EFTs or EDTs, we were sending EDI transactions to payers and receiving funds. So when those funds came into the system, then we had to know how to disperse them. So it was that. It was also coding. I started off in coding because I had to do the configuration, and I started off with some old systems. I mean, some legacy systems. Well, we had to build from, you had the tables, build every table and start with tier 1 and all the way up to tier 18, depending on what it was. Those are some of the skills that I picked up. And when people look at my resume, they say, well, oh gosh, you have an impressive background. Well, that's what happens in healthcare because, I went from configuration to managing a project, to managing release of information, which was a part of security, to managing revenue cycle management, which was a part of finance. So it helped me bounce around and gain not only technical knowledge, but industry knowledge. So what is it? What's an EFT? How does that work and how does it operate? What is the rules and regs in terms of the data? Protecting data or releasing data. What are the rules and regs in terms of how we code and what we do? So it was compliance, it was legal, it was everything that I picked up in this industry. So it was a lot. That's one of the reasons why I said healthcare was very rewarding, because I learned a lot.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed listening to the things that we talked about earlier, which were some of the risks of being employed with someone else versus being an entrepreneur and owning your own firm. And now we're talking about the competitive advantage and how the pros and cons kind of outweigh each other when you look at the categories. One thing I want to pause and really take a deeper dive into are the risks. And if there are risks that exist in your industry and or your experiences that Blacks typically face versus others, or that women may face. And then I'd love to get your insight from each of you on how those risks that Blacks or women face, how they can be lessons learned. So Roshandra, I want to come over to you. Do you have any insight just in your experience, which we would love to gain a fresh perspective, which is what you're bringing to the table on maybe some things that you've seen risk-based that Blacks or women face in your industry, and then how they've overcome those risks?
Yeah, well, Being a Black woman engineer, it's not a lot of us at all. And some of the risks that I would say we kind of face is that when you submit the resume, for one, once they recognize that you're Black, they automatically think that you don't really know the information that you need for the job, which I've experienced several times on both my jobs. And then also because of our skin color, they think that we just not smart. We're not even smart enough to be in the industry to even learn all the math that's needed, all the circuitry that's needed in my industry. And just to be able to overcome that is just knowing like, hey, I also have a voice, and you also have to work a little harder for your voice to be even heard in the industry. So it's, I would say it's a learning experience on how to articulate in the world of engineering, because it's a different type of vocabulary that they want you to use. And it's like, I know what I'm talking about. And I want you to understand what I'm talking about. I shouldn't have to utilize your language to explain what it is I'm trying to say. So that's a big factor when being, in the industry, because we judge differently, and we also articulate it a little bit different than someone else that's a different race. And it's because we need to put things in our language for us to even be able to understand. So that's one of the biggest things being a Black woman in engineer, is that it's a predominantly male industry in general. I've been to 2 companies now, and with both of them, I've been the only Black woman. So it's like, okay, well, now I have to fight to prove myself, and so on and so forth when it comes to different projects. In order for me to actually be seen, I have to say, oh, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. It's not more so of them delegating a task to you, and you either accept it and be at the forefront, or sit on the sidelines and be in the back and be like, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything. So that's kind of the risk of being a Black woman engineer in the corporate industry, in the corporate world.
Thank you for that insight. Vonda, do you have any commentary on being Black in your healthcare industry and being a Black woman in your healthcare industry related to technology, and what people can do to overcome those risks?
So everything that Roshandra just said is correct. I've worked at companies where I was only African American female. I remember leaving a company and I was crying. I left for discrimination, and they actually sided with me. They realized, because like Roshandra said, they set me in a corner. They wouldn't work with me. If I would show up on the client site, and they wouldn't be with me. They would pull out. Anything to make me fail. And I remember leaving the company, and she asked me, what could I do? I mean, and the thing is, I didn't realize how much it had bothered me until I was doing my exit interview. And I was very emotional. And she asked me, she says, well, what can we do? When I said, hire more of us. That's what you can do, so that I'm not isolated when I come into companies, and I don't have to fight this battle alone. Unfortunately, we talk about being Black and being the only one in this industry. I meet a lot of women in IT, but we're just so spread out. African American women, we're just so spread out. One of the things too that I noticed is that it's not just being discriminated against. Sometimes we discriminate against each other. Sometimes we don't help each other out. So that's something else we face. I remember going to a company, and it's a Department of Defense, as a matter of fact, and it was a young lady there who wanted to battle with me. And I had to pull her aside when they said, hey, listen, I'm here because of you. You must have done such a great job that they said it was okay to hire us. So let's work together. And so that's one of the things that we have to do to overcome the barriers. Let me tell you something else about technology. I'm working in stats all the time, and I'm looking to see where we measure. We are the least, so we're last in line. It's being taken over by other ethnicities that are dominating. And so while we're not working together, they're working together. You know, they're working together in their countries and got things set up, and then they're coming over here setting up. And so they're dominating, not because they're the smartest, because I've worked with everyone, but because they learned how to work together, and they learned how to dominate. So that, you know, I don't know if this is answering your question correctly, but this is how we survive in this industry. Yeah, we're outnumbered, and we may very well be that until the end, but we can, you know, we can put our stake in this industry. You know, there are all sorts of provisions that are made for us. Like for me, government contracting, there's diversity contracts. So contracts made just for me, for one, being a woman, for two, being a minority. So it's taking advantage of that, but it's also partnering and working with those that want to come together and want to make our presence known. That's what we have to do in order to survive in this industry, because it is tough. It is.
Yeah, absolutely. So do we know where the young lady that was battling you at the time, where she is now? I'm just being nosy at this point. It was what?
They tried to fire her. It was why I didn't want to record her. It was us, and I told her, if you leave, then that makes me the last man standing. We have to stay together. But she wouldn't stop. And we have that mentality that we are the token and we're the queen and we got to kick down the other. I don't know what that was about, but they end up releasing her. And after they released her, you know, it just wasn't good for me. And I imagine she was that way with me because they were that way with her. So it was like a pecking order. And she decided, well, I'm taking it out on her instead of working with me, because actually we had the most knowledge. We did.
Okay.
Out of the whole team, we had the most knowledge, but we were divided. And so they ended up releasing her, and a month after she left, I ended up leaving. I looked her up on LinkedIn, but I dare not say anything. But I was glad she was working. I was like, I just want to make sure the sister's working. I don't think she understood it. She
Absolutely. Well, you know, that's one of those things from an industry perspective, regardless of whether it's technology, as you become more of a seasoned professional or you age in wisdom, you learn the power in numbers. And so that's why it's important to have conversations like this. And it's important to reach back to individuals that we may not know, either by a conversation or saying hello, and then developing a professional relationship from there, because there is strength when we all come together and we learn those lessons early in our career. We've been talking about risk for a while. So Ieshea, I would love to get more insight from you on what you feel like, let me rephrase, the then versus the now. And so do you feel like, based on this conversation and your own experiences, there may have been more risk in the technology industry 15 years ago or longer versus where Black professionals are now?
That is a phenomenal question.
It's a loaded question. It
is very loaded. I'm sitting like, ooh, there's so much I want to say.
Please do.
So before I get into the then versus now, if I could, it's because I love everything that Roshandra and Vonda said, but it's the scarcity mindset, right? And that's really how we've been managed for years. There are so few of us, right? And then whenever we do get in the room, we know how hard we had to work to get in the room. And then when we look around the room and don't see ourselves, and or when we do see one of us trying to get through the door, we don't know how they're going to divide that, right? So they divide us, divide and conquer. That has been, and it worked. For whatever reason, it doesn't work with anybody else's culture. It works with ours, right? We feel like if we scatter, it's fine. And we'll do it, and they'll come together every time, and then they win. The risks, yes, the risks are, I would say, they were definitely worse in the beginning. I was a woman in technology in Louisiana.
Oh.
Yes. mouthful,
it.
and a mouthful.
We got it.
Like,
Yeah.
I have stories that are out of this world. Like, I've been in literal presentations where, and I was presenting to an all white male panel. And I had already done my, okay, who I am, right? That's at the beginning of the presentation, right? You tell them who you are and why I deserve to be in the room, because we always have to justify ourselves. And I was like, maybe 10, 15 minutes in beyond the who I am. And one of the guys, he looks at me and he says, tell me why you deserve to be in this room. Why should I even be listening to you? And so I stopped and I thought to myself, I know I introduced myself. So I bagged up my slideshow. I said, yeah, here we go. And so once I, did that again, right? But I already knew what I was dealing with. Right. So I started my presentation back where I left off. And then his comment to me, because he was just swiveling, he just swiveling the whole time. And he stops and he said, I would never let you touch a server of mine. And at that point, all the rest of the guys in the room, you had those that were on the edge of their seat, right? Because they understood we are at risk. Cybersecurity was so new. And I could see on their face, I was touching every touch point that was going on in their business. I could tell I can read a room. But I knew when this guy told me you would never touch a server, I knew I wasn't going to land a single account in the room. And so I stopped my presentation and I said, thank you very much. And my team, blown away, they're like, you didn't finish. And I was like, say less than nothing. We could talk in the car. Let's go. Right? Because you have to understand we can keep giving, but when it's not being accepted, and that's a growth thing for us because we're so conditioned to, I'm going to prove to you that I can do it. I didn't need to prove. I saw it on their faces, right? And so that takes a bit of confidence that you don't always walk into this industry having, right? And I would say maybe some of that was corporate too. That was learning that in corporate, I knew who I was, even though they didn't put it in my check. I knew who I was, even though they were never gonna call me the team lead. I just knew I was the team lead without the money, right? Yeah. And so when I work for myself, there's a different kind of era you have to walk in. However, the risk of being a woman, you better not walk in there thinking or making it look to them like you felt like, because you became an immediate threat. Who she thinks she is. And you're going to get the who she thinks she is from other women. Right? Yeah. Oh, honey. Yes, ma'am. I've been doing this a while. I'm sorry, y'all. I've been doing this a while.
You're speaking our language. We do understand it. We've lived it. So yes. Continue. We love it.
Yeah. It's the who she thinks she is. And then the men, there's a femininity you better have when you come before the men, because you can't come in and make them feel like you're smarter than them, because you cannot challenge their mentality. I've lost accounts simply because the guy that was in the room could not keep up with the conversation with me, but he didn't want to tell me he couldn't keep up with the conversation with me. I've had men who I have hired and employed. I'm sorry, y'all, I got stories. I have men that I have hired and employed who have come on my team and sabotaged me because they thought I was a figurehead, literally words from their lips to my ears. Oh, because like I had one guy and he could not get on the server to save his life. And we're standing there and we're at a client, we're at a presentation. He's trying to get on the server and he cannot. And I'm trying to be that guy, right? Because I'm like, but we got to go. So I said, can I try? He was like, no. I said, can I try? And so he stepped out of the way. I'm going to call so-and-so. And so he steps away. And so by the time he steps in the hall and he comes back, I'm on the server. I've gotten everything we needed. I've done. He said, oh my God, you do this too? And I don't understand too. He said, well, I just assumed. Please don't assume. He said, well, you started a business. I just thought you started the business and you didn't know how to do it. So there's the risk of even employing our men who think if you don't know how to do the work, So it puts you in a different kind of a mindset. When you work, you can't ever just relax and know that your team has you, because you're always proving to your team that you too, even if your team, because I don't mean I've hired white men and they've done that to me. Matter of fact, I've hired Black men who did it to me worse than my white employees have done it to me. Hate to say it. I know we're on Blacks United, but it's the truth, right?
If it's the truth, it's the truth.
And then the other risk that I would say is financial.
Okay.
We are not put on the same playing field at all. We're not allowed the right amount of lending. We are not allowed the right amount of, so that is also where it becomes really, really difficult. Perspective, right? Your perspective when you come to work for me is, oh, this is a woman, she got a cybersecurity company, she got all this money, and so I can take advantage. So I've had people who have given me contracts with amounts on them, and then they renege on their amounts because they came to the table and thought that they were counting my dollars. And so I know Vonda can tell you. I don't know about Roshandra. I know she will. If you're in the government contracting space at all, they're slow to pay.
Yes, they are.
You have to have your own money up front. It's the amount you have to have in order to write some of your RFPs. You can't even write them if you don't have an amount in the bank that you cannot touch. And the amount is in the bank and you can't touch it. And yet you got to pay payroll. And they're going to take their 60 to 90 days to pay you out. Yeah. And so when you, and the banks won't lend to you. I literally had a bank. I landed a contract. And the contract, I don't mind. It's $400 and something thousand. Okay, I ain't going to get that specific. And I went to the bank and I literally had several million in contracts, signed contracts. I didn't just bring the one. I needed them to front the money for equipment on one. So I brought multiples and I laid them on the table for the bank. And I said, now I could tell you my credit score, but again, I could tell you all the things. And yet when they look down at my contracts, which are inked and signed and government, and the banker looks at me and says, well, we're not in the bid. How do we know that you're going to actually do all of the work? And so we can't be accused of going into a government entity and ripping out the equipment. How would that make us look? So then they told me, you can sign over all of your contracts to us, and then we will pay you out of your own contracts so that they could lend me a line of credit for an ounce of what I was coming in there for. So what people don't understand is when you see a woman sitting at your table and she says that, I need for you to work with me. I need for you to, sometimes we need to come together and understand that one of our foot through the door. See, I'll bring a Roshandra. I'm sorry, sweetheart. What's your name? Right? I want to say it right. Roshandra. Okay. So Roshandra and a Vonda, I know how to walk through the door and bring people with me. We got to understand how to sit at the table together. And that in and of itself is a risk because we're so busy not having the vision. We'll blow up the world to keep one of us from walking away while they build everything all the way around us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Vonda, I saw you shaking your head in agreement. Do you have anything that you want to add on that topic? And the topic originally was, and Ieshea, thank you very much for all of those gems. Vonda, Ieshea was talking on the risks. Are there more risks now than there were previously from an industry perspective?
Absolutely. So I'm going to tell you this. In government contracting, especially if you're starting out, so your company has no credit, they're looking at your credit. Take care of your credit. take care of your credit. Go back, pay it off, do whatever you have to do. You can get loans, but like she said, one, they'll loan you money, but only a fraction of it. And two, they're going to charge you interest. They will. That's why they do it, so that they can get some of that money from you. They can charge you interest. Right now, Citi says they will loan you money. And who was it? Whose website? I think it was Johnson and Johnson. I was just on. I'm a supplier for Johnson and Johnson, and they said, oh, they have Citi. They said we have financing now. Go to Citi, but what Citi will do is, of course, finance you a loan, but take a percentage of it. So the risks are not having good credit. Please take care of your credit. The money's in the bank. Don't think it's a glorified payday. I've seen many of people lose a contract because you have to report on it. It's not just taxes. You have to report the government. There are reports that you have to turn into the government for your money. They want to know how that money was spent, and you have to have an account for it. So you have to be accountable for everything. And then I've seen people that got the money and thought, oh my God, I got paid. Let me go and buy a house or buy cars. And they got stuck and couldn't pay their payroll because, like she said, it takes anywhere from 45 to 90 days. And sometimes things get hung up. Government shut down. I went through that in 2020. So things will happen. Hold on to your money. Put it in the bank, like she said, spend it wisely, but take care of your credit because that's going to be very important. And it's part of your reputation. When you go to Dun & Brad's, because you got to get a Dun & Brad's number, they are going, if they can't write off of your company, they're going to write off of you. So just make sure that you take care of everything, that you take care of yourself and take care of your credit and have a good reputation because they look for us not to have good credit. They want us because they want to raise our interest rates higher. That's how they make their money. When we come in the door, she's black, she doesn't have any credit. Let's charge her extremely high interest rate, even though she has an 800 and some odd credit score. Let's do this. So that is something to think about too. If you are going to go into business, that you have to take care of your credit, and save your money.
Absolutely. Roshandra, I want to pivot to you. You are a licensed and independent financial broker for the World Finance Agency, and you're getting a great start in your career. Hearing just some of the things in this conversation, in addition to your life experiences, are there aspects of your career that you would do over, or would you continue your career path in the same way that it is now?
Sorry, what was the last portion of the question? It kind of cut out.
Absolutely. Would you continue your career path the same way it is now, or are there parts of your career path that you would change based on your life experiences, in addition to hearing the experiences of Vonda and Ieshea?
I would definitely change a lot. Definitely grateful and thankful for my journey and my story. But there would be a few changes that I would make, especially, coming into the engineering fields of things. I would have did a lot more research than I did because I previously was going to school for pre-nursing. So I knew all the background, everything that I needed in order to be successful in that field a lot quicker. But with engineering, I kind of dropped the ball and didn't really do any back end on it. I just thought it was cool. I liked it. I had fun. The classes were good, but I didn't do as much preliminary research on the certifications that I can get outside of just it being electrical engineering. So that's definitely one of the things that I would do different now. As far as, my financial agency, I wouldn't change because how the business and how I kind of got into it was from a good friend of mine who introduced me to the opportunity, which gave me not only, and everyone's on here talking about money, what we could particularly do with money and also what the wealthy are doing with money, which is why we feel like we're kind of left behind. So learning the different rules of money and the three major rules, she kind of touched on the interest rate, right? We have to know, how to get our money to compound and how to get our money to work for us rather than us just working so hard for our money. And even when it comes to just business loans, instead of going to the bank, once we get the knowledge and the education of becoming your own bank, you don't have to worry about going to them. Because now you're literally building your own financial foundation that gives you that back end of saying, okay, if I need a loan, I'm gonna just take it for myself. And that way, because it's from yourself, guess what? You also get the interest rate on it. So a lot of, nuances when it comes to me now learning this information at a younger age. It's kind of like, okay, well, now I kind of have the upper hands. Sorry, you ladies on the call, right? Don't know anyone's ages, but just being able to have the upper hand of saying, okay, well, once I do step into the platform of saying, I want to build an engineering company or so on and so forth, because my dream is to build a STEM summer camp for kids to be able to learn about STEM and technology and different, avenues and things like that. I don't have to worry about going to a white man to say, hey, here's all my things. Can you give me a loan? I now have the capability of saying, okay, I have the knowledge. Now I can kind of go to myself and get that loan for whatever I may need it for.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all.
I wouldn't change it. I kind of like my journey and my story. Yeah.
Absolutely. I do want to take this time to open up to our audience any questions that you may have. Certainly this very seasoned and very experienced panel will have some answers for you. If you have any questions, please ask them and we'll make sure we get them answered. While we're moving on, I just want to inquire with the ladies, and we'll do a round robin related to this question. Now that you all have mastered the levels that you're on, what's next for you? What are you looking as far as business or skill set, possibly future education or certifications? We'd love to know what's next for you.
Where we started.
We can start with you, Mel. Sorry. Vonda, I would love to hear where we're going. Sorry, what's the next level you look forward to mastering?
I think I'm gonna stay right here for a while. What I would like to master is employing as many of us as I possibly can. I don't think I have the corporate and government contracting down to a science. So I'm going to be planted here for the next few years. As far as certifications, technology is always changing. So whatever's happening next, I will go and get certified for just to stay abreast. So that's pretty much where I'm going to be.
Roshandra, since you've mastered where you are, what's next for you?
The next thing for me is to officially fire my boss and completely go full-time and submerge myself in the financial industry of just educating the masses on money and how to actually get ahead and how to really build generational wealth and keep it going. So that's what's next. That's ultimately, the next 2-year plan is to be able to master that and say, hey, all right, engineering, it's been a long run. I love it. I'm still going to stay connected because I do want to get 2 other certificates, which would allow me to just do contract work outside of just being in the corporate world. But yeah, that's what's next.
Absolutely. Ieshea, you've mastered many levels. What's next for you? And then we'll take a question from the audience.
I think I agree. I don't feel like I've mastered anything yet. And so one of the things that I am doing, though, is working to help bring as many people into the cybersecurity space and teach them and train them as I can.
Absolutely. Teach one, reach one. Andre Butler has a question, and that question is, how are we using technology to scale and build capacity within our organization? Anyone can take that. I'll call someone. Ieshea, how are you using technology to scale and build within your organization?
So I was just trying not to talk too much.
You're dropping gems, so we appreciate it.
The way we're using it, I guess, is definitely we use tech to train up our people. We are into like the digital twins right?
Okay.
We also are learning to use, so I have a love-hate with AI, but AI is another thing that we're learning to adopt and utilize as a small business. I need as much help as I can get, but then there's the part of me that says, so that would be my answer, is we're using AI and, using it to further develop the next group.
Perfect. Okay, Vonda, we do have another question from Andre Butler. This one says, how can individuals work with your business, and what opportunities are you looking for in partnerships and building your teams?
Well, how can individuals work with? They could just, sign up. First of all, I'm just taking 1099 employees. What was the other part of the question?
Apologize. So the other part of the question is, are you looking for partnerships and building your teams?
I am looking for partnerships. I am looking to build the team as well. A lot of people aren't prepared for partnerships, like I said, because in government, when you're getting into contracting, you're taking on a lot of responsibility and you're divulging a lot of your information. This is a grueling, and I'm sure, Ieshea can tell you, it's to start up, and to keep it going. It is a grueling process. I am taking partners. I would love one. It depends on, for different contracts. But also, looking for, gosh, can I say employees or consultants? I will say consultants. So looking for consultants to grow. You got to be well versed in technology, and that's pretty much it.
Absolutely. And for our audience, please go to their LinkedIn pages. Everyone has a LinkedIn page. Connect with them. From a question perspective, or to gain more gems, as that term has been used here, or even to talk about those business opportunities and partnerships, please connect with these individuals, these phenomenal women on LinkedIn. The next question we have is from Terry Allen. Terry Allen, I love this as I skimmed through it already. It says, we can make it or break it if we have an ally, sponsor, or champion in our wheelhouse. If we don't, sometimes that can be a challenge. How do we obtain your ally, sponsor, or champion? And what was one of the great things they did for you? So I'm going to send that question over to Roshandra. Roshandra, do you have any ally, sponsors, or champions in your wheelhouse? And can you tell us what was one of the great things that they did for you?
I would say for, myself, allies is just my mentorship, my coach within the financial industry to help me, better build and better branch out as far as my business. And one of the great things they did is that although, I've failed at it or I'm not good at something, so on and so forth, they've always guided me to the right direction, or even how to just become better on the journey of building a business, because there's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, right? The ups are always good and the downs are always, we have to, figure out how to stay in the middle. And that's one of the things they've always taught me. Like, don't get too high on the highs, don't get too low on the lows. Always stay indexed right in the middle. That way it's not always an up and down when it comes to emotional intelligence. So that was definitely one of the great things I've learned with being in business, and also, building a business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And audience, if you have any additional questions, we'll take those before we close out.
I would like to add something.
Absolutely.
When we talk about partnerships, there's always an opportunity to subcontract. So when I say partners, I mean subcontracting. That is basically, I'm a prime vendor. So I'm always looking for subcontractors, which is a great way to segue in to government contracting and corporate contracting, because you get yourself exposed as well, especially for the work that you do. So always seeking, subcontractors, or even freelance, anybody that wants to do freelance.
Absolutely. This question is for all three of you ladies. Feel free to chime in. The question is from Peter. Peter is asking, when you say that people see Black women as not being eligible to be in the room, how do you know what people are thinking versus that being a feeling that you may believe they are feeling? Ieshea gave us clear indicators based on what was said in the room. So I'm going to maybe ask Vonda and Roshandra, how do you know when people want you there versus maybe a perception that you have that they don't want you to be in the room as a Black technologist?
Do you want to go first, Roshandra?
Yeah, I can go first. I mean,
Okay.
it's one of those things when it comes to reading body language. I feel like body language is very, very important. When you're stepping into a room, you can kind of see whether you're actually welcomed or if someone's closed off by just reading their body language, outside of it just being, okay, I'm feeling this energy is the word that we all like to utilize. But that's one of the key things I've always paid attention to when just going into anywhere is, hey, am I actually welcome? How's their body language? Are they opening up to me, or are they just closing off and it's just, you're just here? And yeah, and also when energy is not, when I wouldn't say energy, when personality is not reciprocated. For an example, if you saying, you just walk in a room and say, hey, how you doing? And someone, and they just be like, oh, I'm good. You already know at some point they either don't want to be bothered or they just don't want to be bothered by you, especially with being a Black woman. At my job, particularly when I walk in, you can just see the whole, everything shifts, but they shift towards my energy rather than them just being showed off. So those are two key things I've always paid attention to.
Vonda, do you have any insight or experience, right? That's how we all learn through the process on when you walk into a room and you know you're qualified. What do you say when people see you as maybe a person that's not qualified? Is it a perception that you're getting, or is it that you know what people are thinking?
Oh, it's their action. So, for instance, with me, I've often travel with counterparts. All the questions are directed to my counterpart, even though I'm speaking. They direct the questions to them when they're commenting on, oh, your hair looks nice or your clothes look nice, but they're not asking me the technical questions that they need to ask me, or they're not paying attention. At the end, when I want to check retention, how well they retain the information, and they can't remember a thing, but they, you look like, or they have redirected the conversation. So no, it's no longer a professional conversation. It's no longer a technical conversation, but it's just a conversation about me. And all the technical questions go to my counterpart, instead of me. So I know, okay, so I wasn't received well. Yeah. Not that I didn't deliver, but they just didn't, And you know what's funny? A lot of times my counterpart will look at me and ask me the question, and I'll answer it. Yeah. Say, okay, there you go. Yeah. So that's how That's how I know.
Well, thank you all for your insight and your gems and your experiences. We've all been enriched by them. I just want to say thank you personally. It's been a pleasure to be with you on this panel. This is definitely an example of a Black woman's intuition reigns supreme. In your experiences, you've talked about people you've met, you've talked about experiences you've had, and you've talked about lessons that you learned on your journey. And so I want to thank you for that. Again, connect with these ladies on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, you're looking for partnerships or other business opportunities. And we just want to thank you for attending our session, which was called Should They Plan a Career Working with Others, or Should They Start on Their Own? And we just have enjoyed the 4th annual North Texas Tech Symposium, and we were happy to be here. So thank you all for attending. Have a good afternoon.